Hello and thanks for joining me. So in this video I want to discuss a very important subject of depression, clinical depression. This is something that impacts millions of people around the world, and I believe it is a health crisis really, especially when you consider that virtually every suicide or most suicides are connected um, with depression, and the rate of suicides is far higher than the rate of homicides in most countries. Um, I know, for example, in the UK, we have just over 1,000 homicides a year, but we have somewhere in the region of 5 to 6,000 suicides, and that's probably typical around the world. So the rate of suicides is significantly higher, and that's a really sad thing when you think about it. The number of people that want to make or feel that they have no other way but to make that ultimate drastic decision to end their own life. Obviously suicide itself is a complex subject, and I don't want to make this video entirely about that because it's certainly connected, but it's probably for another video. um you get people committing suicide out of desperation in an immediate situation or because of ongoing depression. So for example, you might get someone taking their own life to evade a greater threat. Maybe they're being pursued by someone or something like that, and maybe an inmate facing death row takes his or her own life. Um, then you get suicide, which is very spontaneous. Maybe people aren't thinking clearly. Then you get suicide that's pre-planned. So in that sense, it's a bit like different levels of murder. Premeditated murder. You get crimes of passion, etc. Now with depression, the angle that I'm going to be taking with this is actually more about those who know someone who they think is maybe clinically depressed, and maybe they don't know what angle to take. Maybe they feel that they're trying everything and they're growing frustrated, or they just feel lost as to how to approach it. So what I would like to do, as someone who really has been on that edge, who can really understand what this is like. Firstly, I think it's very important that we define depression. Everyone in life has days where they feel fed up. Everyone has times when they feel that they are just fed up with things and they don't want to continue. Everyone has down days. That's not depression. Where depression differs from just feeling stressed out or feeling under the weather is that depression, it's not something that can be seen, but it's something that it's abstract to an extent, but it's very real for those going through it. It's like a huge metaphorical weight holding down your entire psyche, and it drains you of any positive energy that you would otherwise have. More often than not, it is a lot of problems adding together. And more often than not, there is one defining problem more than others that sort of it is particularly weighing someone's conscience down. It could be financial problems. It could be maybe a loss. Maybe someone dear to them has passed away. It could be a sense of failure. There's usually one defining thing, and that's not to say it would be the only thing, but there is usually one core aspect, and then the other problems in life kind of cluster around that and then combined. That is what weighs people down and makes them feel like there's no way out. What I want to do is talk about what I feel is the best way to approach someone that you care about, that you feel that they are going through depression and you're maybe not sure how to do it. So you could be a parent, you could be a friend, you could be a partner, or maybe even a colleague. You might just be an acquaintance and you just care about the person, you think that there's something wrong there. Um, One of the complicated things about this is that depression itself, like I say, there's not a defining single cause. So no two people with depression are necessarily going through exactly the same experience. One common theme with depression is obviously feeling very, very down and feeling drained and sapped of any positive energy. But it's difficult to, it's not like other medical conditions where there's a defining theme. Depression could be caused by a whole range of factors, and so what might work for one person wouldn't necessarily work for another. So, in that sense, although it's a very widespread problem, it's also a very individualistic problem. Now, what many people find is that they feel that what they feel is best for the person is best, and they feel that they have good intentions and their advice is the best thing. That can be problematic. The advice in itself may be sound advice, but one of the worst ways you can approach someone with depression is kind of remind them of the reason they're depressed. Is kind of state the obvious. So, for example, if someone's having financial problems, saying, if you don't find stability, this is going to continue, that is only going to increase their depression. It's going to increase that sense of anxiety and pressure that they feel. Maybe someone is finding it very hard to get over a loss. So telling that person bluntly, this person's dead and they're not coming back, you may feel that that blunt truth is the best way to deal with it. Not necessarily. What you need to understand is that someone who has clinical depression, they're not stupid. It's not like they're oblivious to the source of the problem. Most of the time, they know what the problem is. And more often than they not, they know practical things that they need to do to try and solve it. But what you need to understand is that what depression does is it makes what should be a simple process very difficult. So what would seem like something simple to another person, like applying for a job or um, being proactive, for someone going through severe depression, it's such an overwhelming feeling that it really, really does prevent you from functioning in a normal way. So that's why stating the obvious, and my battery's running low, so I'm going to just change location here. I don't want to conk out in the middle of the video. I'm just going to keep talking as I'm moving here. Stating the obvious really, even if you feel that there's good intentions behind it, it's not going to help that person. It's really not. One of the most important things when it comes to speaking to someone with depression, and this is not easy, but it is actually listening, really, really listening to what they're trying to tell you. Listening, but not pushing them to open up to a point where they feel uncomfortable. So if you really do care and you say, look, I'm here for you if you need me, that's a good thing. But you also need to follow up, and what that means is really listening to the person. So it can't be they start telling you the problem. You say, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. That to someone who's going through serious depression could be actually overwhelming. And I appreciate that it comes usually from a point of genuine concern and you genuinely feel this is the best thing for that person. But you have to give them some empowerment. And if you're issuing advice that they're not necessarily asking for, that can feel like you're trying to control their situation. And people who are depressed don't necessarily want that. Sometimes, and like I say, people are different. Some people might want advice and they might specifically ask for it. But most people who are depressed, one of the most defining things I think about depression is a feeling that there's a total loss of control in their lives. So if you're then coming in and saying you need to follow this advice, it may be good advice in itself, but you're then taking away any sense of control that they would feel that they would have. I'm not saying you can't suggest anything, because there has to be communication as well. You need to, so I'm not saying just listen to it and not, if you really do think that there's something that can help them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with suggesting that, but it really does have to be from a point of suggestion, not imposing advice. And I think some people struggle to see a difference, but there is a big difference. I think it's very important that people understand. I think another factor that a lot of people with depression feel is that they are a burden. So if whatever they're going through, if you find that that is putting pressure on you, then of course everyone has a right to, speak up for themselves. So it's okay. You would have a right to tell that person, look, that's impacting me as well. But what I would say is, don't think that the person is just being selfish, or they're just being melodramatic, or that they're not caring about others, because in all likelihood they themselves will be feeling enormous guilt. They themselves will be feeling, I am a burden. So if you're sort of thinking, like, why are they not doing this, why are they not doing that, yeah, like, I'll come back to what I said earlier. Clinical depression prevents you doing things that otherwise would be normal. So what the person really needs is a certain degree of understanding, and they need people to really listen to what they are saying. Because if they feel, well, people are just going to tell me what to do, people are just going to impose this advice, how can I open up? That will be what's going through their mind. Not to mention they feel they might be judged. If it's a financial problem, for example, they might feel, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I should be in a better position than this. So any sort of notion of bringing age into it, or bringing social roles into it, like, you're a man, you should be doing this, or you're a woman, you should be doing that, any sort of social roles is not going to help either. Remember, people are individuals. So you might think that their age is an issue, like, oh, you're only getting older, you don't have time to do this. It might There might be some truth in that, but that is definitely not going to help the person. I cannot emphasize that enough. Stating the obvious is not what you want to say to someone, is not what you should say to someone who's going through depression, because they know this. What you need to understand, it's not that they don't know it, it's that they are feeling overwhelmed in terms of how to address it. That's the issue. So what I would say to parents, to friends, to siblings, to acquaintances, certainly, if you really do feel that it's impacting you as well, you can certainly let the person know. But please don't approach it from a point where you assume that they're just being a difficult person, or they're just being awkward, or they're just being melodramatic. If someone says that they're depressed, that is different from just feeling down. Um, and it is widespread. But I think there needs to be a good deal of understanding. It's not that, we're all human. And it's not that, I'm not saying that you need to understand everything that's going on with them, and you need to understand that, or even agree with it, absolutely everything they're saying. But if you're sincere about wanting to be there for them, you have to listen. And if they find it hard to talk about it, let them know, well, look, you don't need to tell me everything, but just know I'm not going to judge you. I'm going to listen to what you say. And that will at least give them the option of thinking, well, maybe I can go to this person. But if you're saying I'm there for you, but I'm just going to impose advice, that's something totally different, because you're not helping. You might think that you're helping, but all it does is make things a lot harder. And I'm not, by the way, saying, oh, tell them everything's okay, and tell them that, there are not problems in life and everything's perfect. I'm not saying cover them in cotton wool and kind of hide reality from them. But the way to go about it is to reassure them. And the way to do that is by not judging and by not imposing advice, because you need to give them empowerment to feel that they can start to approach the problem themselves. And I think the best way to do that is to let them know that you're not on your own, but I'm not telling you what to do. And I admit it's not easy to get that balance, because people instinctively feel protective. They instinctively feel, well, they have to do this. There are, of course, secondary issues there may well be times when intervention really is necessary. Maybe I would suggest if someone has an addiction, then you can't appease that. You can't say, oh, well, I'll let you kind of get on with it. In that situation, I would suggest that is different. I think there does need to be a certain degree of intervention in those cases, but with clinical depression, in some ways it's more complex. With something like alcohol addiction or drug addiction, the problem is there, it's obvious. And I'm not saying it's simple, but it's obvious. With depression, the person going through that really will themselves be trying to go through a labyrinth of what approach do I take. And maybe they do need some secondary opinions, maybe they do need some advice. But again, it has to be from a point of kind of a mutual respect point of view, not this is the advice, follow this, I know best. Because maybe your advice isn't best for them. Um, so this video, what I've been doing, I've been trying to, as someone who's been through this, I know clinical depression all too well, and I imagine a lot of people watching this will have been through it as well. Um, and I think there might be people watching this who maybe know someone who's going through this. You know, I think most people are fundamentally decent. I think most people fundamentally have their heart in the right place and they want to help, but maybe they genuinely don't know how. And it is difficult because everyone's got a different personality. So what might work with one person who's facing depression wouldn't necessarily work with another person. You might have people who are naturally introvert, and you might have people who are actually extrovert, but maybe they are still going through depression. So different personalities also weigh into this. If you know the person, then their personality isn't going to be fundamentally different just because they've got depression. So you're going to know something about them. You're going to know, well, are they introvert? Are they extrovert? If they're introvert, don't push them too much. If they're a bit more confident naturally, but maybe they're at a time in their life where this depression's getting them down, then give them that option to open up, because maybe they will feel that's the best thing. And if they don't want to open up, okay. Say, well, look, please don't feel any pressure to say anything you don't want to say, but just know that I sympathize and I'm here for you. Now, I would also put a caveat before I close this up to people who are going through depression. And I really, really understand this because it's something that I really know very well. I've had bouts of severe depression in my life where I'll I've been on the verge of suicidal thoughts. I've really been on that edge. Now, if you are such a person and you're going through this, because everyone is different, I can't offer any advice as to how to improve your situation. But when people are giving you that option, that they're there for you, really, please, please consider taking it. Please consider just talking to someone. They might not be able to solve all your problems, but I really do find, and I found that when you open up, it's generally speaking a lot better than keeping it all to yourself. I mean, there could be many, it doesn't have to be someone that you're close to. In the UK, we have a charity called Samaritans, which is total strangers, and they listen to you. They just listen to what you have to say. That doesn't always work. Sometimes you might need someone more intimate that knows you, but it can also be very helpful. It's a free number. I think it's 116 123. 116 123. It's a free number. Phone them up and they'll just listen. And I imagine in other countries there's equivalent resources. So if you are going through depression, I'm not going to say I know exactly what you're going through because everyone's different. So your particular issue I might not have had experience of. In my own case, it was financial problems. I'm not going to open up too much in this video simply for time reasons. I might do that in another video. In my situation, it was money problems. But other people, it might be, like I say, it might be bereavement, it might be a total loss of confidence. It might be a range of factors. Maybe you've been in a profession, you've had an injury and you can't do that anymore. There could be a range of factors causing depression. So what I would say is, if you are on that side of things, if you're the person going through depression, most people are decent. They might not understand everything, but I think if you give people that chance, because you have to also remember people are not mind readers. So you can't expect them to understand everything. So you might think no one understands me, but they can't understand you if you don't give them something to work on, to know. But please understand that you're really not alone, in the sense that there are millions of other people going through depression. It's something that is very powerful, but it doesn't have to define your whole life, and it is not the end. That's what I want people to take away from this. So I hope this video has been somewhat helpful. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm simply a guy who has been through this, and I want people to know that from the point of view of those who want to help, all you have to do is listen. If you feel you can do that, then best wishes with that, because if you really do care about the person, it's just a case of listening to them and trying to understand where they're coming from. And it may be very tempting to interrupt and say, but you should do this, you should do that. But that won't help. You need to listen to what they're saying and where the source of their unhappiness is coming from. And if you are going through depression, give people a chance to understand it. Give people a chance to understand why you're feeling the way that you are. Because maybe, just maybe, they will be able to help you in some way, even if it is just trying to understand. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching, and if anyone has any questions below the video, I'll try my best to answer as much as I know. Thanks for watching.